we were playing around with stacking order, and we were using the square indicator to the right of the name to move our objects up and down throughout the layer structure that we constructed. Now, I'm going to do a select all again, Command A, hit delete, get rid of all of them. And I'm going to highlight some of these layers. Layer 2, I'm going to delete it. You can see this is how you delete layers. The last thing I want to go over is how to construct a precision-based primitive, I'll show 2 examples. You guys can look at the rest and experiment. I can't go over every feature, but the tools have an analogous quality with one another. In other words, if I show you this one, the other primitives are going to work in a similar way, and I expect you to explore it a little bit. So I'll show 2 examples. You can explore the rest on your own, all right? The first one is going to be an ellipse. I'm going to click once on the ellipse. Actually, if I wanted to get to the options of a tool, for me, I think that I would want to double click on the icon, and I would think that would launch the options. My intuition says double click on the icon and it'll launch the options. Oh, it doesn't do that. It doesn't do that. Let's try that on another tool. What if I double click on this tool out here? Let's see what happens. Oh, that didn't do anything either. What about this tool? Oh, see, this tool, if I double clicked on it, it launched the eraser tool options. Huh, wait a second. This one didn't work with a double click. This one didn't work with a double click, but this one did. That's the point that I'm trying to make, that there isn't great uniformity or consistency in the options within the toolbar. There are one of 3 ways that you should test whether or not the tool has an option. So the first one is the one that we just saw. Double click on it. The eraser I know worked with a double click, but let's try the ellipse. Double click, nothing happened. That's the first method, all right? Nothing happened. Right, let's try the next method. Click once on the icon and once on the artboard. Oh, that launched the options for it. That's pretty strange. I wish it was uniform, but it's not, and I don't know why. But here, now that I see the ellipse option, I can type in, for example, 3. Then if I hit the tab key, if you hit tab, it jumps to the next field, 3, and then I'll hit, and it creates a 3x3 ellipse for me. Let's see that again. In this case, I'll go to the polygon. Click once on the poly, once on the artboard. How big do I want the radius of the poly to be? 3. And in this case, it's 6 sides. All right, let's do it again. In this case, 3 sides. In this case, 10 sides. You can see here that you can customize these shapes. Now, there's one other thing that I'd like to show you. Okay. As long as these primitives are named accordingly, polygon, rectangle, as long as they are named accordingly. The software has options that can be modified. If I select this polygon and I go over here to my properties panel on the right, you'll notice that right below where it says properties, it says polygon. The software understands that's what I have selected. Now, as long as it's a primitive and it's named, it's not just a regular old-fashioned path, which we're going to see in a little bit. As long as it's named a polygon, I can click on these. This is called a shish kebab. That's what I call it. These 3 little dots, I call it a shish kebab. That's a hamburger, and that's a shish kebab. If I click on the shish kebab, you'll notice there's more options. Do you see the option that appears to control the number of faces that the polygon has? See the option? How many faces is it showing right now? It's showing 6. If I click up, it's going to convert it to 7. If I click up again to 8. If I go down, it's going to convert it. I can also rotate it, and I can also change the radius and the size here. As you can see, there's numerous variables that I can modify within my polygon. This variable right here is a corner type, and you'll notice that currently it's set to 0. But if I start modifying that, you'll notice that it puts a radius on the corner as well. There's a lot of options actually available here for you in terms of modifying these shapes. This is true also for the ellipse. If I select an ellipse, which I haven't drawn yet, let me draw an ellipse. If I go to the settings for it, it's not quite the same. It's not quite the same because it's a different shape. It doesn't have different faces. I can't change the number. But one thing that I can do is I can actually take a pie shape out of it based on a particular degree. And I could swap this as well. These properties in here are interesting, but I'll be honest with you. Do you know how often I work with these? Almost never. Very rarely. I'm not going to say that I completely ignore it, but it's not something that I'm like really concerned about. Oh my gosh, I got to go into the properties for the ellipse. I don't really do that. But I think you should be aware that those features are available to you. So do you know how to make a perfect square that's 3 inches by 3 inches now? Do you know how to do that? You guys think you got that down? Yeah? Good. All right. I'm going to select all of these and hit delete. And I'll do that real quick. Click once on the primitive, click once here, tab 3, hit OK. There's my 3 by 3 square. Now, I mentioned double click. If you don't see any properties, then try click once and click here, and then maybe that'll launch your properties. Sometimes you try both methods and nothing appears. That means that tool does not have any options. There are actually 3 possibilities. The tool doesn't have any options at all. The tool activates the options by double clicking, or the tool requires that you click once on the icon and once on the artboard, and that activates it. To figure that out, you're just going to have to experiment with it. For example, this tool right here, this is called the scale tool. If I double click on it, you'll notice it launches a panel. You'll just have to experiment. And as we learn the tools, I'm going to be demoing some of them. It'll be self-explanatory as you're watching the demo, but I may not cover all of the tools. You might want to check it out on your own.